Good evening, welcome. We're going to be continuing Hilchos Shabbos. Again, we use this Sefer Kitzur Hilchos Shabbos. It's taken from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, and we're on Siman Reish and Aleph. In this print, it's page Samach Zayin. Tonight's especially meaningful to learn Hilchos Shabbos from the Alter Rebbe, because tonight is Chav Dalet Tevis, which is the Alter Rebbe's Hilula, his yahrzeit, his day of passing. It says that when a tzaddik, the day of a tzaddik's passing, all of the work, the learning, and the service of Hashem, and the mitzvahs that he's done, and everyone that he's impacted on during his lifetime, has an elevation. It goes up, which means it's growing, it's expanding. And it's an important day. We're up to the section of Erev Shabbos, which talks about the various requirements and prohibitions that we do in anticipation for Shabbos. Yesterday we discussed about the preparations for the meal of Shabbos, which consisted of shopping early, foods that you have to prepare. You could buy it on Thursday to be able to prepare. Foods that you don't have to prepare, buy it on Friday. In the morning, we spoke about tasting some of the food before Shabbos. There's even a custom to sharpen knives. I guess when knives weren't as sharp as they are today, or they were manufactured differently. But the concept of sharpening before Shabbos, the knives, to be able to make sure that everything is set and ready. But today we're going to learn some of the prohibitions that are applying to Erev Shabbos. Asiyas malacha Erev Shabbos mizman mincha. Doing work Friday from mincha and on. Osru chachamim, our sages have prohibited lasis malacha Erev Shabbos mizman mincha ktana, from the small mincha, which means we teisha shayis umechza ulemayla. From when you get 9.5 hours, which in today's clock, this part of the winter, it'll be around 12:25, give or take. We shouldn't do work then on Friday and on. A person should be free to be able to prepare for the needs of Shabbos that he has. Even a person who doesn't have to do anything for Shabbos preparations, it's all done, whether he has help or it's all arranged. Even he cannot do malacha. It's an important principle to remember that very often when our sages make a takana or a gzeira, in our case a decree, technically you're allowed to work Friday, it's not Shabbos yet, but in order that you shouldn't get carried away and you should really focus on the preparations for Shabbos, we said that from Mincha Ketana, don't do it. Even if you don't have any work to do, you're ready for Shabbos. We don't differentiate. Gzeira is a gzeira, and you shouldn't do work before then. How much time? From Chatzos to Mechatana? It's not a lot of time. It's about half an hour around, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to see soon that it's not any type of work. It's talking about a particular type of work, and he'll specify what he's referring to. This is a very strong statement, which you don't often say. Anyone that does work Friday afternoon from this time and on, he will not see a siman bracha forever from that work. This that he earns from the effort, the work that he's put in Friday afternoon when he should be preparing for Shabbos, and he went to fix his car or something like that, he won't benefit from that work. Why? Ever. Because whatever he's going to earn from that work, he's going to end up losing it in a different place. It'll go after Mincha Ketana. It's a little later. It's like half an hour after Chatzos. 9.5 hours. Huh?
About the person that we have some grocery store.
Very good. So he's going to talk about buying and selling. Is a little bit different. He's talking about work. He'll explain. I want to use his words, but it's not often. We say this about Purim, for example, and other places, but we don't use it often that you're not going to see a siman bracha. It says clearly that if a person does work in this context where he's not supposed to, whatever he earns, he's going to end up losing it in a different place.
Fixing cars.
Yeah, he's going to specify exactly. Buying and selling is not included in this, as we'll see. They only prohibited malachis that you're being kiveya yourself. You're in a permanent way. You're focused. You're completely involved in this work. Sometimes you have this temporary type of work that just doing it's not so involving. For example, You have to write a letter, an email to somebody. And you have to sit down and focus and write it. But it's not like every Friday you have this tremendous project that you have to do and you get fully involved. You got to write a letter to see how someone's doing. They only said you can't do malacha in the way of kva, something which has a permanence to it. That type of work you're not allowed to do. Remember the reason here. In order that you should be able to be available to prepare for Shabbos. But if the type of work that you're doing does not require so much focus, it's not really, you're not getting your hands dirty, so to speak. Not that that's the benchmark, but it's a temporary type of fly-by-night type of work. You're allowed to do that Friday afternoon. In addition, Melacha l'tzerech Shabbos. Melacha shehi l'tzerech Shabbos, HaShabbos, work that you're doing which you need for Shabbos. For example, your button of your kapata, your button from your Shabbos clothes fell off. Kigain. Look for begadim l'tzerech Shabbos. You have to sew clothes for Shabbos. Mutar l'asesa kol hayom. All day you could do it. Even if he is, it's a permanence. It takes time, effort. You got to sit down and focus and take out your sewing machine and start doing it. Interestingly, he says in the footnote here that the Alter Rebbe uses a term litfer, to sew, not just to fix garments. There's a big difference. You would think something ripped, I need it for Shabbos, we allow you to fix it even though it's Friday afternoon. Even if you're making a brand new suit from scratch and you're sitting there sewing, you could do that on Friday also because it's for Shabbos. The only prohibition Friday afternoon of work is if it's not for Shabbos. But if it's needed for Shabbos, you're allowed to do it. Okay? When we come, okay. Nonetheless, what if you're doing something for your friend for Shabbos? Your friend needs a suit and you're a tailor and you know that he's doing it for Shabbos. He needs it for Shabbos. If you want to do it for your friend, you have to do it for free. You can't charge him. Why? Because when you're taking money, it's true, it's for Shabbos, but you are doing it because it's your job, and he's paying you to make him a suit. You're not doing it for Shabbos, you're doing it for the money. And now says and now it's not being done at all for Shabbos. So what you have here is an extreme qualification. We can't focus and do work which takes effort and mindset and so on Friday afternoon. You got to be ready for Shabbos. The exception is if the work that you're doing is needed for Shabbos. And if it's needed, you could go very far and do real work because you need it for Shabbos.
If you're like a butcher and you own a butcher shop, so people come after that time to buy.
Very good. So he's going to say here in a moment that when you're buying and selling, it's not that type of work. But he still suggests that we should be careful because problems have happened when people go to the last second. But you're right, it's a different type of work. Another example, not just sewing stuff. Back in the day, they didn't have copy machines. They didn't even have many books. Before the printing press, they didn't have books at all. And the way you had a sefer was you literally had to copy. You looked at the book and you wrote every word onto a parchment or onto some type of paper. So if you want to write, to copy off one book to another, I want a chumash, I want to learn. So I'm going to sit and write down, I'm going to copy the chumash over to another book, a notebook. Whether it's for myself or it's for someone else, as long as I don't charge him, I'm allowed to do it. Now, I may not need a sefer on Shabbos, but because it's a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah to learn, so it's as if it's for Tzedach Shabbos. So another exception to work on Friday afternoon is if you're writing Sfarim. It sounds from here that anything that's a Dvar Mitzvah you're allowed to do. But he explains that because it's a Dvar Mitzvah. Another exception, haircuts. If you're a barber, the Sapanes Yisrael, if you want to give a haircut to a Jew, which he needs it to be honorable for Shabbos, Mutar Kol Hayom, you could go all day to give haircuts. They have some mikvahs in New York, you walk in, you get a haircut right before you go in, it takes 2 minutes. I feel even if it's an expert, it's a barber, not just some guy who's doing it one time, he's giving a haircut. A salon. I feel mutar, even if you're getting paid for it, which till now we said, if it's for yourself, Tzedach Shabbos, you're allowed to. If it's for someone else for Shabbos, you can't get paid because then you're doing it for the money, not for Shabbos. Haircut is different because a haircut, when it comes to a haircut, everyone knows that if the guy's getting a haircut Friday afternoon, he's getting it because of Shabbos, because he wants to come to Shabbos appropriate. So a barber, Jewish barber, could be open all day and give Jews haircuts even Friday afternoon, as opposed to a mechanic who he has to close. He can't do the work. A poor person who literally, if he's not going to work today, he's not going to have money for food for Shabbos. So we say it's for Shabbos. Your work is for Shabbos in a literal sense. So we let him go and he could do it. Cholamayid, which is the intermediate days of the Yontif, Pesach, Sukkot, where normally we try to avoid working on those intermediate days. It's not prohibited to work, but we try to avoid working. We say that if you really need it for Yontif and just to live, then you're allowed to. So of course, Erev Shabbos, you're allowed to do that type of work as well. The Chol Shekain, Shemutab Erev Shabbos, Amina Chol Amayla, She'isra Siyas Melacha, Be'kal Mi Isra Melacha, B'chol Yishol Meir. Because again, let's understand that the these were science, but what's behind this halacha? There's a takana. Chachamim said Friday afternoon you can't work, so you should be focused on Shabbos. There's exceptions to the rule. One of the exceptions are if a poor person, let's say he's a driver and he's getting paid to take the money and go buy stuff for Shabbos. Right? So he's allowed to do it. I don't know if driving is an example of that type of work. It's usher, but okay. So he gets the cash and he goes, whatever it is, he goes and now he can buy stuff for Shabbos. He's allowed to do it. And the proof that he's allowed to is because look at another halacha, Chol Hamoed. Really, you should not work on Chol Hamoed. The exception, when you're allowed to, one of the exceptions is if you need it for Yontif. It's very expensive. You don't have the money. You're going to work. You could have the Yontif. And that's a much stringent prohibition than working Friday afternoon. And that you're allowed to. So therefore, Friday, you're allowed to work if you need the money for Shabbos. Therefore, whatever's allowed on Chol Hamoed, in the various exceptions and in the various scenarios where you're allowed to, Erev Shabbos you're allowed to do it. Mischar. This is answering several of your questions. When it comes to business, buying and selling, when you're doing some type of buying and selling, you can do this from Mincha and on. The only time that the Shulchan Aruch prohibited real working Friday after Mincha Kana is real work. But if you want to buy something, if you want to sell something, that type of thing, you're allowed to do it on Friday afternoon. Nonetheless, it's a good idea to send a person, go around. Back in the day, in the shtetl, for example, you send someone, and you say, guys, it's an hour before Shabbos, it's time to shut down. Now, you're allowed to, but it's a good idea to have them close. Keep on, huh? There's loudspeakers in the cars, no? Shabbos is coming.
And all these guys, I'm closing.
Because very often mistakes happen or a big mess up happens. The person didn't realize he got really close. Someone else was coming. He was going to close. It's a mistake. You got to give yourself a buffer zone. So technically, you're allowed to. And there are some stores in some places, especially stores of food or a butcher shop, for example, people are coming last minute to get stuff. They want to be open. And they're allowed to, but it's better to stop a little earlier. Sometimes an important customer comes, and the business dealings, the negotiations could go literally into the night. So you have to be very, very careful. In the footnote, it brings up this achron. There are different opinions on it, but you're allowed to work, and it's good to stop a little bit before. The following simon is going to talk about types of work that you do that you started it, and it's going to finish on its own on Shabbos. So you're not going to actually do the work, but you're going to start it off, and the rest of it gets done on Shabbos. Simon Reish Nun Beis. This is a type of work. The beginning is on Friday, and it gets done on its own on Shabbos. You're allowed to start work on Friday before Shkia, even though you can't finish it today. It's not possible for the job to get completed, and it's going to go on its own. We'll soon see examples. you're allowed to do it, even though the product is going to be made on Shabbos, not through a non-Jew, because we said we can't do that already. But for example, you want to do like samamonim.
Slow cooker or something.
Right, cooking is going to be very specific about cooking, yeah, but certain things like chemicals, yeah, it has to sit for 24 hours. So you're going to do it an hour before Shabbos. And the process is going to go on its own. Can you do that? So a washer's, yeah, yes, but a washer, the problem could be that if Ben Hashmashers comes, it's too wet because of schita, that if you touch it, it's going to cause dampness to come out, then you can't, it's muktzah for you on Shabbos. You can let it run for after Shabbos. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you let it run and you take touch them.
Yeah. If you don't use on Shabbos, then you could, yeah. We're not afraid. I'm going to put the stuff in the machine Friday afternoon, and then what happens? I get shkia. I'm going to be like, let me make it a little bit hotter, a little bit cooler. Let me do something to it. We're not worried about that because everyone knows that that's forbidden on Shabbos. You're not going to mess up in that manner. Everyone knows how that it's prohibited, and you won't make that mistake. And therefore, therefore you could soak ink and various herbs in water. They soak. They soak their whole Shabbos. That's part of the process of making it. You could also turn on your sprinkler to the garden before it gets dark, and then it'll go all night or whatever. You can't. You don't have to worry about that. You're allowed to do it. And the whole Shabbos it'll be watering and sprinkling, and it'll water the seeds. Even though watering on Shabbos is prohibited, you could also put a bandage, and this is a bandage that's medicated, on top of a wound right before Shabbos, and it's going to do the process. The whole Shabbos is the ointment will sink in. It'll do whatever it has to do. In certain cases, most cases, you can't put medicated bandages on a wound on Shabbos. Before Shabbos, you're allowed to. We'll talk later about why medicine and what cases it's forbidden when it's permitted. But the gezerah is, the decree is that a person may go. Medicine is made through grinding different types of, let's call it herbs or chemicals, whatever. But it requires grinding, and grinding is forbidden on Shabbos. So medicine has to be prepared before Shabbos. And in certain cases, obviously, if someone needs it, if they're ill, they're allowed to. But we're careful about it. Certain types of medication, the guy put it on before Shabbos. Let's say it's not the type that would be permitted on Shabbos. It's not that important. It's not that, you can skip a day, whatever. But because you started before Shabbos, even though the process is happening on Shabbos, that's fine.
What about taking pills?
So, practically speaking, if it's a medicine that's prescribed, and you started taking it before Shabbos began, which means that it's all prepared and so on, and you need it for health, for a person that's sick, he's allowed to. Most Rabbanim today say that if the benchmark is if it's prescribed. It's over the counter, so it depends. If a person, for example, has a really, really bad headache and he can't function, they're hatadim to take over-the-counter medicine on Shabbos as well. Vitamins, for example, unless it's doctor prescribed, but you can't take it on Shabbos.
Tons of vitamins, you gotta take it.
If you take it on a daily basis, doctor told you to take vitamin D.
Most Chabad Rabbanim today will say that if he skips a day, he's thrown off.
No.
Take a mitzvah Shabbos. Take it Friday afternoon.
What about tonsillitis? You gotta take it every 3 hours.
Again, when it's medicine, it changes. When it's a medicine, everything, the whole gezerah is changed because the person needs it. He did it before Shabbos. It was prepared and so on. Vitamins, it's a very big shayla if you take it on Shabbos. And again, many Rabbanim say that you can't do vitamins on Shabbos. Maybe there's cases where you need it. It's not a supplement. You really need it. It's instead of medicine. Melina and I'll look into it, come up with a practical answer of when we get to it, medicine versus vitamins. Melacha anasis bikli. a malacha which is done with a one of your instruments, one of your tools. Heter zeh, this exception, this heter, to start working on a malacha Erev Shabbos before it gets dark. Even though you do, it's your washing machine, it's your instrument that's doing it. We don't have a commandment that your tools can't work on Shabbos. Okay, we do have a commandment that your animal can't work on Shabbos. We do have a commandment that your slave can't work on Shabbos. Right? You can't hire someone to do work for you on Shabbos. But if you have a machine and this machine works on Shabbos, that's fine. Okay.
Which means if you have coffee in the morning, you put everything, program it.
Okay, thank you. I want to talk about a few exceptions to this rule. Food is a whole different topic. Okay, we have to be very, very careful with food. Let's go with this principle. This concept that you could start work before Shkia, before it gets dark, and let it run, does not mean you could use it on Shabbos. You can use it after Shabbos. Once you want to use it on Shabbos, there's a lot of different layers here that have to be in place. That's number one. Number two, food. It depends how you're doing the food, because it's cooking and it's for you on Shabbos. What's happening? What type of food was it? There's a gzeira, we might adjust it because you don't want your food to burn or you want it to be ready on time. We will get to it, but this is very specific. You're having certain processes that you're doing require 24 hours of sitting there, or 5 hours, whatever. It's not, even if you don't need it, you just decided, I'm going to run the cycle now. I'm not going to be there, I'm not going to use it. It's a good time to run it. You could do it because your kalim don't have to rest on Shabbos. Your tools, your machinery can work on Shabbos. What is what? We don't have Isra Shesa Skelim. Your kalim can work. No, your animals can't work. Yeah. Let's finish the siman. Even if this tool of yours is doing the work on its own, on Shabbos, you can prepare it before. For example, for example, you have a trap that's going to capture an animal, a mouse trap, or a trap of animals in your woods, or a fishing net. You're not there. You put it out somewhere. It's going to work for you, so to speak, on Shabbos. It's going to do the job. That's fine as well. Even though that this net is doing, the trap is doing the work on Shabbos, because the basket, basically when the animal goes into it, one of the mechanisms is that it triggers something and now it gets stuck. So you're causing it to happen on Shabbos. The animal stepped the foot on it. Think a mousetrap. There's other examples, and then it's not. His example is that the box gets shut. It's still allowed. Okay. Let's stop here for Maidav, and we'll continue with the.
If you're killing the animal, you can still do
it. Generally, these traps are not killing, so he's not saying that. But I think even if you kill, it's not an issue. You're not doing it.